Hello crafties, welcome back to my channel. My name is Infinity and today I have a special treat for you guys. So if you would remember, way back in 2019 I bought my favorite craft room tool, which is the Sentro knitting machine. Now before we get into this video, I'm not sponsored. I would love to be, but I'm not. This machine is like an absolute lifesaver. I made a couple of videos actually on it. I made a video when I first got it and unboxed it and was kind of putting it together, and then I made another video series actually on how to make different projects on this one. Now this one is the 48 needle size loom. It is reasonably priced. This one is about 50 bucks USD. So if you know you're wanting to be able to stock up and make hats and scarves at a quicker pace for whatever reason, this is your go-to. So if you haven't seen that video, I'm gonna leave it linked up on one of these sides, and you can check that out later. But today's treat is actually that I got this one. I got the small one over, I was about to say quarantine. I got the small one over my hiatus because there's this project that I'm trying to plan out, and I felt like I would need this, and the person specifically requested that this project be done on a Sentro knitting machine. So this was gotten specifically for that experimentation. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump right into my video. Today we're going to be unboxing this. We are going to be taking everything out. If there's anything to put together in here, we're going to put it together. Like I said in my last video, I showed you guys how to do that with the bigger machine, and I can see why they would ship it that way. But this one is, I've seen videos and pictures of it in places, so I'm not sure what it looks like in the box. But I'm excited to get started, and I'm sure you are too. Alright guys, so this is what the little box looks like up close. I've already cut the tape on it, but I haven't opened it, so, you know, a little bit of mystery there. I have a vague idea of what's in it, just given my past experience with the bigger version, but I'm going to go ahead and unbox this. Let me see if I can zoom out just a little bit. Just a little bit. Alright, so now I'm opening the box. Imaginary drum roll. Is that another piece of tape? I could have swore that I gotten them all. Alright. So, when you open the box, it opens from the side like this. And this is what you are greeted with. So, right here, these are pom-pom makers that actually came with the machine. I'm going to play around with these a little bit later. It's just one of those cool freebies that they sometimes give. Here is the wonderful pack of, well, there's a darning needle in here, the little tension threader right here, and the crochet hook that comes with the machine. I should probably pick that up. Now, you can't actually crochet with that crochet hook. It's really flimsy, I can tell you, but it's like a 4.5 millimeter, and it's just there in case you drop your stitches. Alright, some instructions that come with the machine, and then they give you, oh, this one has 2 skeins of yarn, so for your little mini projects, because this, again, smaller machine, less needles, so you probably need less yarn. And then the crank of it is sticking out of this little hole right here, so I'm just gonna gently as I can. Ha! Let's get that out of there. Ooh, I love this already. Okay, this is what it looks like coming out of the box. How neat is that? There we go. How neat is that? So I'm already loving this. There is no assembly required with this machine. Like, what? The other one, as you guys probably saw some time ago, I think it was sometime last July, I had to put that thing together. So, okay, this is what it looks like. It still has the little knob on the side. It has a P and a T, and the P stands for panel knitting, the T stands for tube knitting. You can knit flat blanks on these machines. I don't do it very often, but it's a possible thing. They're a little more tricky to do though. So what I want to do is just kind of put this threader on, because I know it goes on there. And if any of you have ever bought this machine and you like happen to lose this, it's no real huge big deal. But like I said several times, that last one of mine, it disappeared into the void. You can use any really small crochet hook to use and pick up your stitches, and it works just fine. So let me see if I can do this backwards, because I'm looking at my monitor. You want to line the little pegs up on the inside of this little crevice right here, and it looks like you just kind of put a little pressure on it so it snaps right in there, and then you have that. So it fundamentally is the same thing as the bigger one, which is not close next to me right now. So alright, let's look at these instructions. That was quick. That was quicker than what I thought it would be. So okay, the instructions, they're in 2 languages, looks like. And oh wow, okay. So fundamentally it's the same. The main difference that I'm noticing with this machine is, one, that it is smaller, and then 2, with the needles. So on the big one, if you guys remember, the bigger one has a bunch of pink hooks, and then that one white hook is your indicator for row change. And on this one, all your needles are white, and then you have this black one for your indicator. And then another big difference is it has no row counter on it. So I mean, you would have to either have one of those that you wear on your pinky, or you know, some separate row counter for your projects, which I imagine if you're cranking out a scarf on this, it's going to be little and you probably won't care. But for hats, if you're going to mass produce hats, you're going to kind of want a fair idea of how many rows each you're doing. Like that's a thing with me. I don't know. Okay, so it's showing you how to flip the switches on the thing from panel to tube. You hear the little click, that means it's successfully shifted. Of course, when you start a project, you're going to want to crank until your indicator needle is in the upward position, like so. Who would have thought? Okay, let's see, what else? There's not really a whole lot to this one. This is actually kind of simple. You know, I like this. So like if the bigger one was this simple to put together and then start cranking out projects, that would have been cool. When I bought the bigger one, they didn't really have any instructions in it. Like there were none, and I was just sitting there trying to figure everything out. I think I mentioned it in the video that I was going to sit up around with it and try to play with it for a while before I posted pictures or whatever, and I did that. If you're unfamiliar with how to work the machine, I'm going to dive right into how to thread it and work a project. Alright, so we're going to start playing around with this machine. So, like I said, they gave us 2 of these little cute sample skeins of yarn. The center string is already up on this one. Yay. Okay, so much like the regular one, you would want to wrap your yarn around the front of the indicator needle, I call it. I'm going to do my slip knot as I normally do. If you're unfamiliar with my Sentro knitting machine tutorials, I prefer to use a slip knot with this machine just for fear of it unraveling. I've had it to happen, so I just kind of do that as a precaution, and then I've never had an issue working a project. So I loop that around this indicator needle right here, and as normal, I have this set to tube knitting right now. So what I want to do is start casting on. So you're going to go behind the next needle, in front of the next one, behind, in front, behind, in front, and so on until you have completely cast on. Another big difference with this one is that there's no suction cups for it. So once you get ready to start cranking on it, you're gonna have to hold it onto your surface. Basically how I hold my other machine onto my surface, because my surface is, for whatever reason, non-compatible with those suction cups. But alright. And I'm almost there already. Again, very small projects. I think they're like 20 needles, 20 something needles. I'll look here in a second as I come back around. And this one, the needles are numbered on this one as well. So just like the big one. These needles are numbered. And it has 23 needles? 22. Okay, there we go. Alright, so now I am going to pop my yarn into my threader. Just put it through like that. And then I am going to, this is like actually decent weight yarn, so I'm just going to put it in the center one. That's usually the only one that I use on this machine, the center hole, because it just gives me that perfect tension. So after you cast on, you just basically start cranking. And when the machine is new, something I forgot, this is nostalgic. When the machine is new, you can kind of hear that popping, but it's not catching your yarn, I promise. It just takes a little bit of working, because like as you can see, as I moved on to my second row, that I don't have that catching in there. So just like any machine, you gotta break it in a little bit. And you know, you're supposed to crank the first 3 to 4 rows particularly slow. I'm just used to getting on this machine and just rolling, so I'm just kind of leisurely doing this. And eventually you'll come out with a project. And this is basically what you're doing the entire time. So when you're cranking this machine, that's just another thing I probably should have mentioned, but when you're cranking this machine, you're pushing the crank away from yourself when you're tube knitting. And you're just going around in circles and circles. Now the panel knitting is a little bit different, and I will have a tutorial for panel knitting coming up in the future, because it's a little trickier than tube knitting, but this is essentially what you get. Now I just kind of eyeballed my tail. That's another thing. I kind of eyeball my tail when I work my projects. Now you can actually measure out the amount of yarn that you need, but I typically just go like, you know, kind of wrap my yarn around my machine, and if it can go around there 1, maybe 1.5 times, then I'm good. And this one definitely does that. And that was totally by accident. So I'm just kind of used to working this machine. So I mean, I've said it before that this is something that, particularly the bigger one, this is something that I find that's really important in a person's craft room, because like say you're preparing for fairs, or you know, you're trying to stock your Etsy shop, because Lord knows I'm doing it right now. This is something that allows you to crank out things quicker, and that gives you time to spend, like more time to spend on like planning and making other like handmade things that you can potentially market for more. It's just like, it's one of those staple things. And if you're a little skeptical, or you know, kind of living that broke college student life, these machines are a little more affordable than like the Addy. Now once you get comfortable with this type of machine and type of a tool in your craft studio, yeah, I would say, you know, spring for the Addy if you want to, or you can just stick with this machine. Now my other one that I have over on the reverse corner, but my other machine, it I've had it over a year. I've never had an issue with it. It hasn't broken. They're very durable tools. I have never had an issue with it ever. Ever. So you know, it's definitely something I recommend, and I know I advocate for it a lot. No, I'm not sponsored. Okay, We're not going to talk about what technology did to my recording. However, we are going to talk about this machine. So I'm going to probably leave my face up in the corner and we're just going to talk about it. So what this part of the video is not, it's not a tutorial. I do have a tutorial back on my channel on how to get started with these machines. This machine and my big guy here, they're essentially the same. So getting started on either one of them is virtually the same process. What I want to talk about is what I found when I opened the box. Now when I first opened the box, tongue twister there, I saw that they had the little packet with the threader in it, and they had the little plastic crochet hook that always slips into the void with me, and they also had a little sewing needle for when you're ready to cast off. They didn't have the 3 needles that the larger Sentro, the Sentro 48, came with. They just had 1. So there were a couple differences there. They also had this little pack of, which I still have here, pom-pom makers, which I plan on playing with a little bit later. So that was that when I first opened the box. The box opened from the side, as you guys can see. I don't know why I'm trying to explain that. Anyway, so that was that, and then I slid the thing out the box, and I was pleasantly surprised that I didn't have to assemble this thing. The only thing that I had to do was pop this threader into place. That was right up my alley, because if you guys remember last July, or yeah, July, when I bought the bigger machine, it was this whole process. I had to put it together, and I wanted to sit back and take time with it because there's a lot of stuff. There were virtually no instructions. There was like a little card thing in there that was like, yeah, you thread it like this, and you know, you're on your own. You're up a creek with no paddle type deal. So I was like, at that point, I'm like, well, you know what? It'd probably be a good idea to look at YouTube. And you know, there was like a couple videos out there where, you know, you were basically given the gist on how to work this machine, but for the most part I learned how to work my bigger machine watching AliExpress videos, which, I mean, like, fundamentally similar, but it's not the same machine. So that's why I went into doing a series for these machines, because I realized that that was one of the struggles, at least way back when I bought my first one. So with this one, again, I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't have to put it together. No tools needed. I was just able to press this into place, and I'm sure if I wanted to, I could pop it out of place and have no issues, you know, getting it out of there. But anyway, so I did that, and from there I just kind of wanted to tinker with it and see if it was the same. One of the market differences that I noticed with the mini, I call it the mini, is that, well, first of all, it doesn't have a row counter. It doesn't have a row counter. So if you're unfamiliar with knitting machines, or specifically the Sentro knitting machine, the bigger one comes, it looks like this. I need to reset my counter, but it has this little ledge on the side, and it has a row counter. And this is beautiful because I don't have to count my rows when I'm cranking out projects. And I'm going to just sit this on the table because I'm going to need it. You know, I find that when I'm knitting things, it's really important that I'm able to count my rows. And I know in regular knitting, tongue twister, regular knitting, when I knit, you know, I like to count my rows every so often to see how far along I am and how many rows it's taking to build up my project. So that's a thing that this does not offer. Another thing that I noticed, it's really not a big deal, but on the bigger Sentro, you have pink needles, and your indicator, or yeah, I call it the indicator because it's the one that shows you where you are. The indicator on this one is white, as opposed to the smaller one where all the needles here are white and the indicator is black. So that was a difference. It's not really a pet peeve or anything, just different, right? So that was that. Another market difference that I noticed. So as you can see, this little machine, it has this little weird smiley face shaped basin, and it has these little, I guess it has these little black rubbery stops on the bottom. So when you put it on your table, it's not supposed to slide around, but in the video, at some point, I know I am shaking, like I'm moving it around the table. It's clearly easy to use. Now, in my opinion, in my personal opinion, I think this smaller one was made with the intention of maybe teaching little kids how to use a knitting machine or a knitting loom. They call it the rabbit. They call it the rabbit, and it's cutesy, and the machine itself looks like a little rabbit. Some of the off-brand versions of the Sentro, they have the actual bunny face on it, so I think that's interesting. It's kitty. What don't I like about it? Aside from the row counter being missing, I don't like the little rabbit ears being here, because if you've seen any of my other Sentro videos, first of all, you know this doesn't have that. And so when you're going back and forth and you're weaving your yarn on your needles trying to cast on, you don't have these little weird stoppers blocking your fingers, and it's weird. It's just a weird design, in my opinion. But again, I think it was meant to be marketed towards kids, maybe. Maybe that was their thinking, not sure. So there's that. No other real big issues per se with it. These little rubbery things, like I said, I wish that this machine had suction cups, but I guess for the size, they didn't feel that that was necessary, or kids weren't going to shake it around if they're using it or whatever. I don't know, couldn't tell you. But those are my pet peeves. Now, as far as using it, I have the same amount of ease using the smaller one as I do the bigger one. The smaller one, I think, is meant for, well, is meant for smaller projects. So I've seen people do different things with them. Like, I've seen people make little loveys and stuffed animals using a knitting machine. I have seen like the little decorative pumpkins. They use little the smaller size knitting machines. I have heard that you can make gloves and mittens and things like that. I primarily stick to hats and scarves with these machines just because, I mean, they're simple. I don't know. But if you're going to do something, I think like charity drives, like I know I used to do my charity drives every year. I haven't gotten a chance to do it since I've had this bigger machine, but I digress. If you're doing like charity drives for like the neonatal department or something, this is actually perfect. I, of course, would not have my model head over here with me at the moment, but I'm going to go grab that so I can show you guys what I'm talking about. I hope that this video was informative in the slightest. If you've been thinking about doing knitting machines, you know, definitely start out smaller. Like, it's okay to start out with a smaller machine. I would have no issue with that until you figure out if you like it or not, because some people get a knitting machine or a knitting loom and they're like, this isn't for me, and then like you have this piece of machinery that's just like a waste of money sitting in your studio, and it's like, oh my gosh. Something else I've noticed too, the yarn that came with this little machine, it doesn't snag. It didn't snag on me. So when I first cranked out hats on my bigger machine, it's had all kinds of snags in the first couple of hats that I made until I don't know what finally got it to work and stop. So I don't know, kudos for picking better yarns, I guess, who knows. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative, mildly. If so, don't forget to leave me a thumbs up, leave me a comment down below if you have any questions about these machines. I've been using it, like I said, for over a year, well over a year now. I love them. I love my bigger one, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. I also have an entire series, ongoing knitting series on these machines on my channel. It's all in a convenient playlist, so if you want to check that out, go ahead. Don't forget to subscribe though, because I post every week and you're not going to want to miss out on my content regarding these machines and crafts in general. Don't forget to check out my other social media. I am proud to announce that I have a new Instagram page. I kind of wanted to branch out and post stuff that was exclusively my crochet stuff. My main page is still in my description though, if you're interested in my artwork and other like little personal life stuff, but my ICC business page is also in the description below, so go give me a follow. You're not going to want to miss the content that I post over there. And I'm also on a number of different social media platforms. I'm on pretty much everything except for Snapchat, so I have a little bit of something out there for everybody. Don't forget to check out my Etsy store and my Teespring shop for merch and product releases. And until next time guys, happy making!